Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Smack Talk Live. I am Coach along with Lonewolf. And Lonewolf, sorry to say the text you sent me earlier about the Rays winning tonight, making the World Series, did not happen. The
No, they did not. They did not win.
the
Yeah.
the Astros win in walk-off fashion to force a game six. And the National League is also they are in game four right now. Atlanta leads that series 2-1, and they are up right now, bottom of the sixth, 3-1.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, everybody basically thought the Dodgers were going to walk through this thing. But I'm telling you right now, Lone Wolf, our prediction is still alive.
Very much alive. Very much alive. Hey, and we both had a feeling about these teams, right? I mean, when you look at it top to bottom, the Dodgers pay the money to get the big stars. They're kind of like the Yankees of the West, right? I mean, they bring in all these hot shots and they have a lot of money on their payroll. But we both looked at the way that the teams were playing and where they stood at the beginning of the year, and then as they went through the year, um, the Rays and the Braves, they both have the moxie to get it done, and I think they both will. Actually, I really still believe that. So
Yeah, I mean, you look at tonight, in that the American League Championship Series,
mm-hmm.
it takes a walk-off homer to force the game six. Yeah, and anything can happen, but you would think the Rays are going to be able to win at least one of these next two games to advance to the World Series. And I'll tell you right now, if the Braves end up holding on tonight, beating LA, you're up 3-1. Yeah, anything can happen, but I just don't see um, the Dodgers being able to win three in a row because I think their psyche is so fragile because of
Mm-hmm.
what has happened in the past couple of years that
Right.
if they fall down 3-1, they're done, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're kind of like they're like the bridesmaid, not the bride. They've made it, but they just couldn't get over the hump. And what happened with the Nationals last year? It's like this team is one of those they're poised to be in the postseason, but they just haven't gotten to the World Series, haven't been able to get it done.
Right.
And that does
So,
affect a team. You're right. It does affect a team if they can't.
yeah, exactly. So, you know, baseball's heating up here. I think it'd be really fun to watch a Tampa Bay Atlanta World Series. I think that'd be a lot of fun to watch. I won't be too interested if the Dodgers make it, to be honest. Um, even though Atlanta back in the 90s was like the team and the dynasty,
Right.
they only won one.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not like they had 20 years of being successful. It was, a nice 10-year run.
Right.
Um, so it's not like
Atlanta
it
is now up 5-1, by the way.
nice. That
Yeah.
is nice. So,
Yeah,
um,
I agree. And coach, the thing is, in if you had that series, you've got some storylines there again. Like we talked about the storylines for this championship series for both of these. But if you get Atlanta, the storyline is, can they recapture the magic of what they once had? The Chipper Jones era. Can Atlanta see that championship again? And you'll have a lot of rabid Atlanta fans that'll be in their corner. And then in the Rays side, it's like, they've been close too, but never quite there. They're always in the Yankees division. Everybody's always like the Yankees, 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 Yankees. So it's time for the Rays maybe to step up, and win their World Series. So I think if they both were in the World Series, I'd love to see that matchup.
yeah, and I think that's what baseball needs. They don't need the traditional powerhouse teams in the World Series. They need to start building fan bases across the country, not just in their major markets. Um, that's why I think it's would be very advantageous of them to kind of find a system like the NFL does where there's a lot of parity, where you can basically go from last to first within a couple of years, instead of these teams that, like Kansas City just did a couple years ago. They win the World Series and then they just sell off their entire team.
Yeah, and now they're just terrible. But
Yeah,
that's the thing. They're going to be bad for a long time. They're not turning it around and all of a sudden, boom, they're good again. They're just going to be bad for a while.
right. And that's what, baseball and the owners in baseball, at least in my opinion, live off of the stock of winning a World Series forever. And they think winning
Yep.
just one World Series is going to give them carte blanche to do whatever they want because they can point back and be like, hey, we did win a World Series. Um, and it's unfortunate because if you're an owner of a professional sports team, yes, it's a business. You're there, you're trying to make money, but at the same time, you have a duty to your fans to try to put a competitive winning product on the field.
Right.
And if you don't want to do that, you should sell your team,
Yeah.
period. So,
Yeah. Well, it
um,
almost seems like, in baseball, you get to a point where some teams are good just because they're able to spend the money every single year to be in that position. And there's only a couple of teams that are able to do that. Just like now the Dodgers, the Yankees perennially just spend a ton of money to be able to be good. And I'm not saying they're winning the World Series every single year, and they're not, but they're always good. But a lot of the rest of the teams, like you just said, Kansas City, they go out, they win the World Series, and then kaput, and then they're just a nothing. I mean, baseball lacks the ability for teams year in year out, like you were just saying, in football, if a team wins in last place, guess what? Next year, wow, they won the division. And if you can do that and you can match that somehow, you get those fans excited from a different fan base. Whereas now it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm interested in my team, but how interested am I if year in year out they're not going to be any good, and the owners are like, yeah, okay, fine.
exactly. So, we will sit and wait. Next show, we should be talking about the World Series matchup. So,
We should. Yep.
um, quickly highlighting the NBA. The Lakers won the title, but to be honest, who really cares? To be honest, who besides people in Los Angeles, who cares?
Yeah. And
Who,
LeBron loves his mom. So great.
right?
Yep. We know that. Yep.
Who really cares? I think the NBA has turned off so many people with their off court stuff,
Yeah.
that people just don't care. And unless it's a new team winning a title, nobody cares. I think people are LeBroned out. I really do. I don't. I think LeBron's fan base, his super fans are still going to be fans, but I think the casual fan that started to go his way when he started opening the school and doing those things that helped the community, he really turned them off during this whole, social justice
Right. Yeah.
stuff. And I'll say it. That's where the NBA. That's why the ratings were the worst finals ratings in history.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Nobody
don't
wants.
want and we talked about this several times. I don't want people to think the issue isn't important. We're
Right,
just saying, look, this is the reality of what happened. You promoted these issues and fans were disinterested by it. And it's not good or bad. I mean, you can say it's good or bad, but it's just what it is. It's just the reality of what happened.
right. Again, we say it often. People
Mm-hmm.
watch sports to get a break from reality. They don't want reality brought into their entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment. To the players, this is their career, but their job is to compete and entertain their fans. The fans make it possible for organizations to get the sponsorships. The sponsorships breed TV contracts, hence their contracts. So,
I mean, without fans, you're not going to have it. I mean, if attendance is so low that you without forced attendance being so low. I mean, if you only have 5,000 stands in your 80,000 stand, 80,000 fan football arena, well, what are you doing? You're not making any money that way, and you're not successful as a business, and so the players can't get paid, and there it goes. I mean, it, yeah, and it is their career, and we respect that. But yeah, that's what people want. And again, good, bad, or indifferent. Here's where we are with it, and that's what turned a lot of people off from watching it, unfortunately. So
right. And I just it's going to take a long time for the NBA to regain the fans um that they've turned away. I just it's going to take a long time um for this to happen. So but they're quickly proceeding to their off-season activities. That there were some coaching moves. Tyronn Lue is now with the Clippers.
yep,
Um, nothing major yet, and I'm sure in the next week or so here we'll start hearing about trades and signings and X, Y, and Z, which is really what people I think were waiting for.
right,
Um,
yeah. I mean, we talked about that. I think that's what we really gearing up for is this NBA offseason because there's so many big pieces that could potentially move. And even some of the, say, second tier kind of guys, that can still really impact a team depending on where they go and shift the balance of power. So,
right. So, before we move to our weekly NFL preview, I do want to, get your thoughts on the and I'm just wondering how this stuff's even possible. It came out this week that Nick Saban tested positive for COVID, and I just read an article that he is hoping to be on the sidelines for their game against Georgia. Um, I haven't looked to see when they play Georgia, but I mean, I just don't understand this. Um, if you have this thing and it's Saturday, he's hoping to be on the sideline Saturday. How can you test
right. I was
positive
just
for
going to say, yeah,
COVID
it's
and
Saturday's game.
be on the sideline that Saturday? You are still contagious.
Right. I just think it's foolish. One, you're sick. Okay, you're sick. So why are you running around on a football field as a coach? You know how much energy it takes to coach.
Right.
You know that quite well. I mean, and if you were that sick having this disease, why are you out there? Number one, for his own health, and he's not a young man anymore. So you got to take that into consideration. He shouldn't be out there. Number two, yeah, he's still contagious. Why is he out there? Why? This is something that the university should take a look at. I don't
Well,
get it. I don't understand.
I'll tell you what. If I'm Georgia, I'm
Yeah,
furious. If he shows up at
yeah,
that stadium, I'm not letting him in.
sure, right,
I don't care. You are positive for COVID.
right, exactly. Yep,
It's not like you were tested positive a month ago or even 3 weeks ago. It was Wednesday, 2 days, not a day and a half
one day
ago.
ago. It's just
I,
yesterday.
I,
It's
I
just
mean,
yeah,
come on. The, I I know a thing or two about coaching, even though it's at the high school level. Yeah, you all want to be there. You always want to win. But the thing that irritates me the most are these coaches with such big egos that they make foolish decisions that they expect everybody just to be like, oh, look at how heroic he is. Nick Saban, we don't think you're heroic if you coach this Saturday
There's
and
nothing
you're
heroic
positive for
about it.
COVID. We think you're
Right.
an idiot. Your
Yeah.
whole team then should be quarantined, and you should have to forfeit your next 2 games because you're in quarantine. That
Right.
I mean, am
Well,
I off
and
base here, Lone
come
Wolf?
on. You can't tell me that he has an assistant coach that can't coach that football game. I
Right.
mean, really? Come on. Those guys are prepped and ready to get head coaching jobs at other places. That's why they go to Alabama as assistants. You can't tell me that one of them can't coach the team in his absence. That happens all the time. You guys have all sorts of things. People have other things that have happened to them. Coaches get cancer, or they have some other type of ailment, or whatever the case may be, and they don't coach that football game. He has a disease. He just tested positive for it. Don't go out there. Oh, it's contagious too. Yeah, I think it's foolish, and I'm wondering what Georgia's response will be. I mean, really, if they say, hey, you're positive, you can't come here. I don't know. I'd be interested to see if they would do that.
Yeah, and I'm just reading here too. You have Cincinnati who's having a pretty good season, has had positive tests now.
Yeah,
So again, we're starting to see this pop up, which we all kind of knew when as the flu season got closer, this was going to happen
right,
because a lot of people who probably had COVID over the summer thought it was just a cold. If you're asymptomatic, you probably
right.
thought it was just a cold, and you kind of just, got through it and fine because, the recovery rate is so high. But now, because the flu season, you go into the doctor because it's flu season to get a flu shot, you get tested, and bam, COVID. It's it, it this is going to cause issues, I think, moving forward um, in the next month or two.
Hmm.
I think we're going to see some big issues, especially at the college level, because they're being foolish and letting a lot of fans in their stadiums.
They really are. Yeah, and it's just going to get worse. It's just going to
Yeah,
get worse.
I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah,
the NFL is not. I mean, look at their example. They are not. I mean, there's only few stadiums where they allow fans, and even then, it's what 10,000
yeah,
out,
it's not
out
a
of out
lot.
of 80,000. I mean, they spread them out. They're just there's very few fans.
Yeah,
And
it
the
all
AD for Alabama also tested positive for COVID too.
right.
Yeah.
So interesting stuff. Well, it'll be interesting to see what Alabama's response to Nick Saban saying this. I mean, as an administration at Alabama, I'd be like, you are the most powerful person at the entire university, even more than the chancellor. Basically, you have
Hmm.
to set an example here and say, you know what, I'm going to isolate, stay away from everybody because this is how it has to be done by
Well, and
him.
and we're talking about one team in the SEC and the coach, because yeah, Alabama gets a lot of the headlines, but Florida LSU postponed their
Right.
game. This is Missouri Vanderbilt postponed their game because Vanderbilt's having an outbreak. I mean, a lot of these teams in the SEC are getting hit with COVID, and it's just rampant. It looks like across the entirety of the SEC.
Well, and a lot of these universities have around 50% capacity in their stadiums.
Yeah,
And when you put that many people in, I don't care if it's open air, all those people, if you even have a handful of people that have
they still
this,
have to go through the tunnels, right?
right?
And bathrooms.
It's like if you're gonna play with no fans, period. Uh, it's just I think the SEC and I'm not sure if what the Big Ten will. It'll be interesting to see next week when the Big Ten opens up to see if they how big their fan bases are.
Right.
But I think the SEC is being very, very foolish on how they're handling everything, at least on a football level, you know. But again, this comes down to the ego of the SEC. The SEC thinks they are untouchable. Well, guess what? I don't want anybody to get sick from this thing, but wouldn't that be something that you put in two SEC teams into the college football playoff, and both those teams have to forfeit those playoff games because they have a huge COVID outbreak?
Right.
Guess what? You're not untouchable, SEC. The virus doesn't care that you're the
Yeah, it
SEC.
doesn't care. It does not care who you are.
So, I just wanted to touch base on that because I thought it was very,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I think you look at a lot of other universities, their coaches would just say, "Okay, I'm out for 2 weeks because
Right.
that's the period of where I'm contagious and I have to stay away from people for 2 weeks."
Well, and Steve Sarkisian was handling stuff for the preparation for this week. And you know what? Just let him coach the game. I
Yeah,
mean, just let him coach the game. If you have confidence in him as one of your coordinators, you can let him coach the game.
right,
So I just that would make the most sense to me. Yes, it's a big game. I get that, but you don't think that he can handle it? Well, then you shouldn't have trusted him as your coordinator in the first place. So
right,
take care of yourself. Make sure you take care of everybody else by not bringing that to them, and just don't go into the stadium during the game. It just don't do it.
right. All right, moving on to everybody's favorite topic, the NFL. And before we get into the preview, I do want to touch on some bigger stories. The second coach has been fired, and that would be Dan Quinn of the Atlanta Falcons. We kind of called that one.
Yeah.
Not too surprising. Um, Especially with how abysmal they were, and the collapses they had in the early games. I think if they would not have collapsed in two of those games, they'd be sitting at 2-3 right now. And I think the ownership would have just let him continue to finish out the season. But
See how it turned out. Yeah.
when you have those huge collapses, it's just kind of unforgivable.
Right.
Because like the Cowboy one was all on the coach.
Oh
Um,
yeah, definitely.
there was
Yeah.
nothing there. I mean, that the when your players are staring at the ball that went 10 yards on an onside kick and they aren't picking it up, you didn't coach them.
I just
Period.
I could not believe that play. No matter how many times I watched it, it was just incredulous to see players just looking at the ball and doing nothing.
Right. They were boxing out like a basketball rebound, but nobody wanted to touch the ball.
Right.
And it totally just flabbergasted me when it came
Yeah.
to that. So
Yeah.
so
Big
Dan
incident for
Quinn,
the head coach. Yeah. Yep.
is put out to pasture with the Falcons. Somehow Adam Gase still has a job. And especially like what just happened this week, you release, not trade, you release your best offensive player in Le'Veon Bell.
I coach, I don't even know if there are words for how awful this team is and how awful he is as a coach.
And on
I mean,
top
there are
of that,
words we can use, but I don't think they can fully describe how bad it is there.
Lonewolf, I would trust a pile of poop coaching this team more than Adam Gase. Seriously, I would.
I mean, look, it's his fault that Le'Veon Bell is injured for the season because he's a dope and he puts him back in. And then he has he's like, oh, well, I think, we'll talk to the GM and the owner. Well, let's get rid of this guy. We don't need him anymore.
You
You
know,
were the one who got him injured in the first place.
well, and now they're talking about they might be trading Sam Darnold. But
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that. Yeah.
so there's reports they're looking to trade Sam Darnold, but yet then there's rumors that they want to trade for Matt Stafford. Why would Matt Stafford agree to a trade to the Jets?
Oh my God,
The
no.
Lions are a better team than the Jets,
Yeah, and that's saying
and
something.
that's a bad
There's
situation.
right. I
I,
mean, at least they've got a win. They actually played with a little bit of fire in some of their games. Like the Jets don't play. There's no inspiration there whatsoever.
no,
That team just looks awful. Yeah,
but
I
now
don't even
on
I don't get what's going on there. It is a train wreck.
but now that leads me into this. So they released Le'Veon Bell. You're telling me you couldn't even get a fourth or fifth round draft pick for him?
Right.
Something?
I mean, I get he's injured, but come on,
No,
he's
no,
somebody could
he's
use
back.
him. He's got some gas in the tank. Come on.
But he's back. He played last week.
Oh, I thought he was out for the year.
So did I. That was the reports. But then he came back. He's back.
Oh, I
They
gotcha.
released him. And guess what? Guess who he just signed with, Lone Wolf?
Oh boy, let me see here.
So don't look. Don't look. Guess. Just guess. Don't
Just
look.
guess. Okay, who needs a running back right now?
It's not a team you're going to think of. I was shocked when I saw it.
The
It's a pretty
Texans.
good. They're a pretty good team.
Oh, okay, that's not the Texans. Um, Pretty good team. The Titans.
No,
Oh,
the
okay.
the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow, really?
Yes.
Huh.
And they signed him to have a goal line and short yardage back.
Well,
Now,
sure. Yeah, I suppose maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't that guy, but
I don't know if this particularly is going to really help the Chiefs at all. I think they have defensive issues
yeah, they do.
that that that's going to come to fruition here later in the year. I just think defensively they're not as good as last year. I think defensively they just played really, really well all season last year, and a couple of guys played above their level.
Yeah.
But they have some defensive deficiencies that I think very talented offensive teams are going to be able to take advantage of.
I
But
mean,
yeah, so
you give Andy Reid another person on offense to do something with, where he was completely mismanaged and underutilized and not properly utilized in New York, and you put him on one of the best offenses in the league. Ah, I mean, the rich get richer, in my
yeah,
opinion. I don't care what people think about Le'Veon Bell and whether he's got anything left. He'll have something left in the tank, and you will see that in certain games this year in Kansas City.
right. Now my only thing is this. My only thing is this. He does have a tendency to cause rifts in locker rooms.
Sure.
Now, Andy Reid usually is pretty good at managing that,
Yeah.
but I think Mike Tomlin's good at managing that too, and he couldn't manage it.
Yeah. But
He-
it's only a 1 year deal, and they're only
right,
getting him now. So I mean, it's not
right,
even the full year.
right. But if all of a sudden he's not getting touches,
Yeah.
he may start to buck and say, "Hey, I want more involvement in the offense," which
Sure.
that's not how Andy Reid does it.
No.
So it's gonna be interesting see how it plays out in Kansas City. It's a good signing by them. Yes, it gives them a power back that can get hit between the tackles, not just run outside.
Right.
But at the
Well,
same
and a
time,
power
I think
back
there
on the
is
cheap too.
right, and I think though it does have a degree of risk just because of his past issues
Yeah, for sure.
with
Yeah.
creating rifts on teams. So it'll be interesting to play out. But just with that, with all that has transpired,
Yeah.
how in the HE double hockey six
Yeah,
is
right.
Adam Gasse not fired?
I, to me, I knew that it it blows my mind how he could still be the head coach of this team. I do not understand why they continue to stick with him. It's so bad. I mean, Le'Veon Bell being gone, I like I said, it's his fault in the first place that this happened with this injury. He never knew how to use Le'Veon Bell. He never did, ever. Their offense is just a putrid offense, and he's supposed to be an offensive genius.
Yeah.
According to all the Jets brass, he's supposed to be some sort of genius. He is not a genius at
Oh,
all.
he is far
At
from.
all. Completely and totally far from it. Why is his offense in New York one of the worst in the league every single year in and year out? Uh, don't blame it on personnel. Don't keep making that argument. And Sam Darnold, there are flashes of Sam Darnold when he actually has played well. I don't
Well,
think he's as good as people thought he was when he got drafted, but I certainly don't think he's that bad. And he's just stuck on a team that is completely unimaginative in every way possible and is being completely just run into the ground.
it's hard to really pass judgment on Darnold right now because he's
Right.
been on such an. I mean, you put Sam Darnold in a situation where he is on a team that has even mediocre offensive talent, and I'm sure he's better than what he is showing in New York. That roster is so putrid right now that you can't judge him.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, if I'm a GM and I have like I don't know, a 40-some-year-old quarterback, and I might be able to get a former first round pick on the cheap to sit behind him for the rest of the year, maybe next year. Tampa Bay, um, I
What
might,
about New Orleans?
or New Orleans,
Because
or
Taysom Hill, he's a nice gadget player, but he's not your quarterback of the future.
how about Las Vegas?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. There's a lot of places. And this is what I don't understand, right? They are going to let every good player they have on their roster walk. I mean, Robbie Anderson gone, Jamal Adams gone. Let's cut Le'Veon Bell, not trade him, like you said. We'll cut him, and then what? Shop Sam Darnold? He was supposed to be the quarterback for your future. Who? What is your plan? What is your plan to put a competitive football team on the field? Because right now it doesn't look like you have one at all.
yeah, and to be honest, I don't see that this team's going 0-16.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they win a game, I am going to be flabbergasted.
I'd be shocked.
I might actually poop my pants, Lone Wolf, if if this team wins a game.
Uh,
I,
honestly, it may be. Yeah, it may be. It's
I,
just
I mean, you look at this. So you've benched Sam Darnold.
right.
He's only been in the league for 3 years, but you bench him for
Yep.
Joe Flacco, who is at the tail end of his career.
Right.
Your starting running back is now Frank Gore, who is well past the tail end of his career.
Oh yes.
I mean,
Yeah. What are you doing with this roster?
I'm looking at the receivers. Their best receiver is Jamison Crowder.
Right. Yeah. Jamison Crowder is a good slot second or third receiver. He's not your feature guy.
Lone
He's
Wolf,
just
they,
he's not.
they they don't have a receiver over 6'1".
Yeah.
How you can't win with that?
No, no, they have no talent on that roster, and
I mean,
it's seemingly I mean
no,
it's spiraling out of control. this is the thing. So if I'm a Jets fan, I mean, it's bad, guys.
I mean,
In New York, Jets
Lonewolf.
fans, I apologize. You guys are going to be awful, not only this year, but unless the roster just gets completely destroyed and rebuilt, you're going to be awful for a long time. And if for some reason your ownership keeps sticking with this moronic head coach, you're going to be in a bad way for a while.
Oh, if they don't fire Adam Gaze here, I, I that'll
I
blow
know
my mind.
that's the thing. You don't even know what to say. It's inexplicable. It's inexplicable why he still has his job. But it'd be even worse by the next year. So I don't know, but
But you know what? I best wishes to you, Sam Darnold. Hopefully you do. You should be sitting at home, Sam, and be
please trade
hoping
me.
for a trade.
Right.
Just hoping, or
Any
hope,
situation is better than where you are right
or
now.
or, or
And
maybe Adam Gase has crazy eyes again and just cuts you. It
oh,
might
yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean Sam Darnold, I think he'd be a good fit for a lot of teams that we just mentioned. So yeah, for his sake, hopefully he does get out of there and go somewhere else.
All right. The other news before we get to the previews, the Atlanta
Sure.
Falcons have closed their facility now because of a positive COVID test. It doesn't say whether it's a player or like just an employee, but their facility has been shut down. So that could impact this weekend's game for them. Um, Also, Odell Beckham Jr. was sent home with an unknown illness, which that who knows.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Yeah, don't know.
So, you know, just fantasy things to watch for. They've been postponing games, things like that. So, um, those are things to keep for your fantasy teams. Make sure that you are keeping up to date on scheduled games, things like that. 'Cause
Right.
I
And
know,
you
like,
really have to bounce and balance because they're changing those times in games a lot. So
right,
to
like
be aware of that. And if it gets bumped to another week, and then you don't have a player in one of those, if you have a player in
does
one of those
not
teams.
count for this week, counts for that
Right.
week. Like there's no Thursday night game this week because they had to schedule a game on Tuesday, so they moved this tonight's game to the weekend.
Right.
Um, so um, just be aware on your fantasy leagues on when games are being played, if they are adjusted, so on and so forth, because it is a fluid, ever-changing situation. So, all righty.
So I think we talk about we had two games we didn't talk about from last week. We can cover real quick. Being Saints Chargers and Bills Titans, and then we'll go on to the next week's games, bevy of games. I think
Yeah, and
just
I don't
briefly
think
here. Yeah.
either of these games will take too long to talk about. The
No.
Saints beat the Chargers, I believe, if I remember
In
right,
overtime.
in
In overtime.
overtime.
Yeah.
The Saints don't look good.
No, they
That
don't.
that they don't look good. If they continue to play like this, they will not even make the playoffs. Yes, you beat the Chargers, but you barely beat them.
Yeah.
Herbert
Yeah.
looked excellent again. Can he keep it up? We'll see. Um,
Right.
I thought the Chargers had opportunities to win that game. Um, but Drew Brees did make just enough plays to win the game. But that Saints defense is not where I think people thought it'd be at. Definitely are missing Michael Thomas. Um,
Right.
so my worry meter, if I'm a Saints fan, is high. It's red. It's not
I agree.
boiling. It's not about to blow the lid off, but it's getting there. The lid is starting. A boiling pot where that lid starts to to flutter around, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah,
If
I
honestly,
agree. I mean, I watched some of that game, and there was a huge pass play that allowed the Chargers to score a touchdown. It was like a 64-yard pass play, and the corner's just completely out of position and touchdown. And that they've been having that problem all year. So defensively, that's going to be a huge issue, and offensively, they just kind of look out of sync. And part of that's not having Michael Thomas, but you still have guys like Emmanuel Sanders and Alvin Kamara, and they're really Alvin Kamara did not light it up, and the Chargers maybe probably were keying on him to make sure he didn't. But that is also an issue for you offensively if you don't really have that same spark when you're missing that guy. So yeah, I agree. The worry meter should be a little high. One thing I wanted to mention about this game: the Chargers lose a lot of close games. They did that last year, and they're doing it again this year. Any danger for their coach to be out the door, or do you think that there's still time for him to continue on for the rest of the season?
he'll be there at least the remainder of the season. After the season, as of right now, I think the ownership is going to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt because you have a rookie quarterback in there now.
Sure.
You had your starting, running back is out. You've had some injuries, so you can make a justification if you're a coach and you're losing close games. Be like, hey, if we have these guys, we win these games.
Sure. Yep.
And you can make that justification because you're within a score. And and if you have those, some stars that are out, and they're playing, would they win those games? You never know. But as a coach, you can spin it to your ownership, saying, "Hey, we were missing all these guys for these games, and we lost by one score. Imagine if what would happen if we actually had them."
Right.
So I think he's safe at least through the year. I do think they like him there.
Right. I think they do
So
too. Yeah.
I think he's got at least, I think he's got at least this year and maybe another year. But if they don't make steps next year, to be a competitive slash fringe playoff type contender, then he'll be out. Because I think that'd be
Sure.
his next year would be his fourth year, I think there. Um, either third or fourth. So, um, and that's usually about how long coaches get to prove that they can be a contender.
Right.
Um, with before being fired. So, um,
And
I, I,
in
I
your
don't,
game, here, whew,
yeah.
shellacking.
And I think we both thought this was going to be a close game.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The Titans came out and just steamrolled the Bills.
Yep.
Um, there's not too much we can really say about it.
I mean, I
Um,
know the Bills had some injuries on defense, but at the same time, they didn't perform well on offense either. So, I
so
mean, I know the Titans are a good team, but
my
man, this is,
question for you, Lone Wolf,
yeah.
you after watching that game, where's your faith that the Bills can hold on and still win the AFC East if Cam Newton comes back with the Patriots and they start playing well?
Well, and Cam Newton is back, from what I saw. So that does beg the question, and I think we'll get into that in this next week in this next game when it comes to the Bills. So I mean, we can maybe even dive into that one right now if you want to. Chiefs Bills. Since we're talking about the Bills,
Yeah, we can do that. That's it's one of the Monday night matchups. The Chiefs at the Bills.
yeah, this
Um,
this is a game. This is the game where you have to rebound. And so to your point, when you're saying there, coaches, what's the confidence I have in the Bills? Well, they can't go out and get destroyed by the Chiefs, who are another class team in the AFC. So you lose to one team in the AFC that's good, and now you go and you play another one at home If you get shellacked by this team, you are not for real, and you are not a contender. Bottom
Oh,
line.
and to be honest, I don't know if they'll get shellacked as bad as they did by the Titans,
Yeah.
but they're going to lose this game. The Chiefs are just they're better offensively. I don't think the Bills' offense is anywhere near what the Chiefs is. Um, but I'm wrong. The Raiders did handle the Chiefs defensively, and I didn't think the Raiders' offense was that explosive. But I really think Kansas City's going to win at least by 10 points or more. But I think Buffalo will play better, but I don't think they're going to win that game. Um, I just don't think they're there yet. I just
Right.
really don't, for whatever reason. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that game. I just
I still
my
definitely feel like the Bills can be the team to win that division. But they have to be a little careful now because if you're playing these good teams, you have to have a strong showing. You can't go out and get blown out like that. It just defensively, they are not where they were last year. And yes, like I mentioned, they had several injuries, but nevertheless, you should not get blown out like that if you want to consider yourself to be a contender in that conference.
well, and that's the thing because if you do lose to the Chiefs, New England plays Denver.
Right.
New England's winning that game.
Right. Yes, they are. Yeah. And
Even with
Newton is back, and so I think their
but,
offense function, and they probably won't win by a lot.
but,
They'll
e-
probably
but
win
even
by.
but even without Cam Newton, I think New England still
I
wins
think
it.
they probably still win. Yeah. Yeah.
So so now you're tied for first, and now it's basically a reset of that division. But now we get into the third game of that division, the Jets at Miami. Miami's going to win that game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that puts
It's
them
gonna
at
be
three
it's
and
gonna be an embarrassing pummeling by the
right.
Dolphins.
But
Yeah.
that puts Miami, I believe, at 3-3,
3-3. Yep.
a
Yep.
game back. That's an intriguing
Right.
division all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You know,
Well, and
um,
and my feeling on it. I mean,
right?
I think this is one of those things where if Miami starts getting rolling and they start really gelling as a team, all those free agents do, they could be interesting in the mix. And there's that Brian Flores can beat Bill Belichick. I mean, he was there, he coached for him. He can beat him. His assistants do all the time. So yeah, all of a sudden the division has a new look to it.
Yeah. So it could be very interesting in the AFC East um, after this week if that happens. If the Bills lose and the New England and Miami win, that division becomes very, very interesting to watch moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So we've covered now basically three games, and
Yep.
I think we agree in the outcome of all three.
Yes,
Okay.
we did.
So let's go back to the top of our list.
Sure.
Houston at Tennessee. Um, I don't think there's much to discuss here. Tennessee just rolled the Bills. I don't
Yeah.
know if they'll roll the Texans because there's kind of a rivalry there, but I think Tennessee wins comfortably. I'm not going to say handily because I think but I think they win by two scores. Um, and it's the score's closer than what the game really is.
Yeah, and
In my
I've seen some
opinion.
people say they think this is going to be a really close game. I'm not buying that. I think the Titans win by maybe 10.
Yeah. All right. Bengals at the Colts. Now, if you had asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said the Colts by 20 some.
Yeah.
Colts aren't playing really well. Bengals are playing better. Um, but I still like the Colts in a close game. Cincinnati's been able to stay close to teams, except for this
Right.
last week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, they've been at least been in the ballpark. They haven't been blown out like the Jets. Let's like ran off the field. Um, but I think the Colts win in a close game, and kind of start righting the ship there.
Yeah, and to me, they were a little bit uninspired. The Colts, I mean, and I think I like Frank Reich as a coach. I think that the Colts, figure things out. It is going to be close. Cincinnati. This is the difference between them and some of the other bad teams in the league. They play. They play to win. They play the game. They go out there. They're not great, and it's going to be tough for them. It's tough sledding for them this year, but it'll be difficult. But yeah, I think the Colts will win this one. It's a close one.
All right. Moving on, Atlanta at Minnesota. Um, I mean, Atlanta's bad, but talent-wise, I don't think they're bad.
No.
And you have Minnesota who's finding new ways to lose. And, it was funny. I talked to a couple of coaches about the 4th and 1 call that
Yeah.
Mike Zimmer made. And they're like, well, the odds and everything said that they should go for it. And my thought was, okay, that's great. But you kicked the field goal. There'd be I think it's under 2 minutes left in the game.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be up by 8. So Seattle would have to drive down, score the touchdown, and get a 2-point conversion
Right.
just to tie it.
Right.
And
Just
you
to send it
still
to
could,
overtime.
and you still could go to overtime and win the game.
Right.
You went for it, you missed it. Seattle went down, scored the touchdown. Guess what they didn't do? They didn't get the 2-point conversion. 2-point conversions are harder to get than people think.
Right.
Um,
But because there was no score by Minnesota,
right,
they won the game.
right, exactly. So, and I had texted you
Yeah.
about how it just seems that, those first couple years, Mike Zimmer was a fiery coach on the sidelines. He was getting in players' faces. He would get on the refs when he thought there was a bad call. You watch him on the sidelines now, and it's just kind of just like stands there. And
Yeah.
you responded saying maybe he wants out of Minnesota. And
Right.
I couldn't agree more. I think he has run his course there. I think he knows that. He wants a fresh start. Um, he's not going to sit there and not coach to win. He's going to try to win, but I don't think he's going to sit there and stay up until midnight watching film and game planning like he probably normally would do. But in regards to this game, I think Minnesota does get the victory here. I think they
Mm-hmm.
are better coach team than Atlanta, which leads them to, um, get in the back in the win column. Let me say that 2-4, long, long uphill battle, um, to try to get back in the playoff race. But I think Minnesota beats Atlanta this week.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I'll talk a little bit about the Falcons, whereas you when I talked about the Vikings, and yeah, I agree with you about we talked about the Zimmer thing. I think the Falcons are going to lose because I have no faith in Raheem Morris. Okay, I know what people were saying about him last year and inspired the defense at the end of the year. Remember when this guy was a head coach?
Yep.
I feel that he was a terrible head coach. He showed that in Tampa, and guess what? He's going to be a terrible head coach as the interim head coach. So I don't think they improved personally, and that's going to play out on the field. The problems they still have, injury wise and everything else. Matt Ryan just doesn't look quite the same right now either, and I don't know if it's because of the play calling or if he's just losing a step or a little arm strength, but the team doesn't look good overall, and I don't think Raheem Morris is going to help. Um, in any way. So Vikings win.
All right. We already talked about Denver at New England. So I'm not going to spend any time on that one. Washington at New York. Normally, I'd say we make a quick pick on this because it really doesn't matter, but it does matter because that division's pathetic.
Yes.
Uh, so sad we got to talk about this game. Um, you know, Dwayne Haskins was sent home supposedly ill. The rumors are that Washington is looking to trade him in hopes of being one of the people that can possibly draft Trevor Lawrence
Right.
um, in the draft. And I'm just going to say this. Trevor Lawrence, great college quarterback. I do not think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback.
What? How could you say such a thing?
I said it. I am not buying the hype. I'm not buying the hype. They don't run an NFL style offense.
Right.
They don't. And don't sit there and say, "Oh, look at his athletic ability." Blah blah blah. Great, he'll have a couple good years, 1 or 2 good years. I don't see it. I just don't see it. And I could be wrong. He could be the greatest quarterback that ever plays. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I am not going to sit there and trade a guy I took with my first round draft pick in hopes of taking another guy with a first round draft pick.
Right.
I'm just not going to do it. And again, I have not seen a quarterback, in the last couple of years that's like where you just look at him and be like, oh yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. And nobody was even saying that about Patrick Mahomes. And if anybody says, "Oh yeah, we were," bull crap, you were not.
Right.
Now we gave praise to Andy Reid for trading up to get him because we thought he'd be a good quarterback.
Right.
We didn't think he was going to do what he's done.
I don't think anybody can really say that outside of maybe Patrick Mahomes or his
Right,
family. I mean, they'd be like, "Yep, he's the greatest thing since whatever." Well, and I'm sure there are people that evaluated him and thought he was going to do really well, but no one thought he was going to play at this gaudy of a level when he came
right.
out. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is the last quarterback that we were like all pretty giddy about
Yeah.
coming out of the draft that I can remember was Peyton Manning, where we're like, this dude's going to be a stud.
Right.
Like it
I
wasn't.
would say maybe Andrew Luck was one of those guys.
Yeah,
More recently, I'd say Andrew Luck.
but he never turned out to be a stud.
No, but he was a really good quarterback, and I don't think anybody could be faulted for drafting him
Well,
at number
right.
one. I
So
mean, I don't think you could. So maybe him, but you're right. I mean, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer. Probably not. So I mean, and that's what you say when you draft somebody number one. You want them to be right.
right.
So
I just don't see it in Trevor Lawrence. Um, I think he's more of a look at me type of guy,
mm-hmm.
kind of like he's like, and people aren't gonna like this. He has the mentality, the personality, the mentality of um, can't think of his name, Cleveland Browns before Mayfield,
Oh, Johnny Manziel.
Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield, but better talent.
Yeah.
That's who it's like Baker Mayfield and Johnny Manziel on steroids, talent wise. I just his demeanor and the way he carries himself just rubs me the wrong way, and I think people don't take that into consideration when they're looking at especially
Right.
the quarterback position, which I think it's so critical. And
Yeah.
it's not critical to their play, but it's critical of building the relationships with the other guys in the locker room.
Right.
You look at the
Right.
really successful quarterbacks that have sustained success over the years. What's the one thing everybody says?
Yeah.
His,
I
his
mean, they're a
teammates
leader, and
like
people
him.
listen to them, and
Right.
they command the team, and they command respect in the locker room.
You know, Tom Brady, his teammates want to play with him. Aaron
Right.
Rodgers, the teammates want to play with him. Pat
And
Mahomes.
that's not saying
Yeah,
that these guys don't have strong
right,
personalities and
right.
that they don't rub people the wrong way, but
But
they're
they,
competitive and they lead the team, not
but
me, me,
they,
me, 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 me constantly.
they know when to check their ego. I
Yeah.
just don't get that feeling from Trevor Lawrence that he will check his ego when he needs to.
Yep.
So,
I
anyway,
don't know. I'm not quite in that same camp as you when it comes to that yet, but I'll have to think about that a little bit more. But I'm not sold on the idea of you draft a guy and now you're already
yeah,
wanting to get rid of him. And I think the reason for that, though, Coach, is that's Jay Gruden's guy, not Ron Rivera's guy.
right,
And that's
right.
probably why they would want to even
Which I
think
think is
about that.
silly. I mean, coach who's on your
It
roster,
is.
who cares who picked them?
Right. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Adapt your system to what you have. That's how you win in football.
And
Um,
honestly, I think this is a game, that to me the Giants can win.
I agree.
Um, And the danger I see in Ron Rivera and this team right now is Ron Rivera resurrects Kyle Allen and puts him in as the quarterback. I don't. That wasn't really successful in the end in Carolina. It started off well, but it didn't. It didn't turn out that way. And now you're resurrecting that same thing in Washington. That's it's raising some red flags to me. If you're a Washington football team fan.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just gonna go. I am gonna pick the Giants in this
Yep.
game to
Yep.
get
Agree.
the W. I like Daniel Jones better than any quarterback Washington puts out there. I think the Giants are actually playing fairly well for having a limited roster, and I just think that Washington is the worst team in that division. And that's a little flip flop from my prediction, but just watching them the last couple of weeks, I think the Giants are better, not much, but they're better than Washington. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
moving on, Baltimore at Philadelphia. Um, I don't know if you really want there's not a lot of headlines here, but I think
I don't think so.
Baltimore wins by 10 or more.
I
Um,
agree.
the,
Philadelphia hasn't figured out their defense, and they're going to lose this game.
yeah. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Big game for both
Yes,
clubs.
huge game.
Um, I think a big thing here is if Odell Beckham cannot play in this game, that's not good for Cleveland.
Hmm.
If this illness that he was sent home for keeps him out of this week's game, Pittsburgh wins by 10. If he
Yeah,
plays, it's almost a toss up.
right,
I'm not high on Cleveland, but I have to give them credit. They're playing really well offensively.
right.
Now, Pittsburgh is also playing offensively. I think this is going to be a very high scoring game. I think the
Hmm.
winner is going to be like 38-34, 38-31. There's going to be a lot of points in this game,
Yeah,
but I am going to pick Pittsburgh for two reasons. You're at home, they're at home, and Mike Tomlin's been in games like this.
right.
So I give the edge really to Tomlin and the coaching staff in Pittsburgh over Cleveland's because they're a young staff, they're inexperienced in in this type of game. Um, and I think Baker will eventually come back down to reality. I think he's just playing, having that hot streak right now. I don't think he's as good as some of his statistics are saying.
Well, and I'll take that even a step further with the Mayfield thing. We've never been high on him, but I don't really think he's playing that well. When they beat the Cowboys, they ran for 340 yards or whatever disgusting number it was if you're the Cowboys defense. And Baker Mayfield was fairly, he didn't turn the ball over 10 times. So he was just kind of pedestrian. He did what he needed to do, and they ran him off the field. I against the Colts, he played well, but again, I don't think that he's putting up any gaudy numbers. They have more offensive talent. They run the football fairly effectively, and the offensive play calling has been a lot better than under Freddie Kitchens. So I'm not sold on him. So to me, the one factor that it comes down to is Ben Roethlisberger has been in any situation in football that you can ever possibly imagine. Super Bowl, playoffs, big games, close games. And to me, that's the difference here between the two quarterbacks. If it's going to be a high scoring game, which I agree with you, Coach, it will be, who do you trust more as a quarterback? Hands down, Big Ben. So I think the Steelers win in a high scoring affair.
All right. Chicago at Carolina. Very, very interesting game here. Carolina playing really well. Chicago, though, sitting at 4-1. People are starting to drink the Chicago Kool-Aid.
After the win against the Buccaneers,
In which I believe that the more likely the Buccaneers lost that game than Chicago beat them.
Well, it's third down or fourth down. I'm not sure. So
I don't know. Do we get 5 downs, or is it first, second, third, fourth, fifth down, or I can't remember.
Oh yeah.
So, looking at this game, yes, Chicago is playing good football, better than what we thought they would. But there's something about this Carolina roster that is they're overperforming what their ceiling, I think, is. And unfortunately, it's going to come down eventually. But I don't think it's this week. I think Carolina's going to beat Chicago in a close game. But I think Teddy Bridgewater is the key here. That was a great signing. I said it last year. If I was a team in need of a quarterback, I was going out and trying to get Teddy Bridgewater. If I was the Saints, I would have locked him down on a long-term contract at when I had him under contract.
Yeah.
Knowing that we only had Drew Brees for this year and just saying, hey, Teddy, I get you want to be a starter. Get through this year with us, and you will be our starter.
Right.
Why they didn't do that, I don't know. But I like Teddy Bridgewater. He is a phenomenal quarterback in Minnesota before his gruesome injury. It took him 2 years to come back, and now he's playing really well. Minnesota's probably thinking, man, we shouldn't have let him go.
Right.
We should have rode with him through the injury. But they didn't, which, again, they are never really been smart decision makers over in Minnesota.
No, they'd rather give Kirk Cousins $60+ million guaranteed.
But I like Carolina in this game. Chicago comes back down to reality a little bit, and their injuries on in the offensive backfield are going to start to show their the wounds in their backfield. So I like Carolina this weekend.
Yeah, and I do too, and I think it's because this team is starting to grow on me a little bit. Like they're better than we thought they would be under the first year head coach. I liked the defense because they really loaded up in the draft on defense, and I thought, well, it might take a little bit for some of these guys, but there's a lot of talent on that defense, and it's gotten better. And I think you're right because think about it. Teddy Bridgewater is out there doing this, and yes, they have other guys on offense. Don't get me wrong, but they are not relying on Christian McCaffrey right now. He is not playing. So they're doing this, and Teddy's doing this, and there's some really good receivers. I'm not knocking their receivers at all. They're good. They are. But he is the key in this case, and I think that the Bears. Everybody says that before they were the worst 3-0 team, they're the worst 4-1 team, and statistically that's just showing. I think Carolina wins a close one. I really do. I agree with you 100%. The Bears come back down to reality a little bit, and the Panthers sit at the 4-2 at top of the division.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, they're growing. They're growing on me too. I did not think they were going to be very good, but they keep proving people wrong. So I just if they keep playing this and then all of a sudden get McCaffrey back, watch out. They're going to be a tough team to face later this
Yeah,
season.
they'll be a tough out.
So,
Yep.
all right, moving on. We have Detroit at Jacksonville. Oof. That's all I'm going to say here. Not going to say much about this. I'm taking
No.
Detroit just because Matt Sanford.
I'll go the opposite way, and I'll go with the Jaguars. Their defensive woes continue, but yeah, I think they'll pull one off because the Lions just don't. I just don't feel like they've figured things out yet either. It's going to be kind of a snooze fest. So most people probably are not going to be watching this game, but I think Jacksonville comes out and wins this game.
All right. Next, we're going to skip. We talked about the Jets and Dolphins.
Yep.
We're gonna skip. We're gonna have to end our night with Green Bay at Tampa. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I think that's a good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're
Good
gonna
place
skip
to
to
end.
Los Angeles at San Francisco. I read an article about how Kyle Shanahan does a great job of holding the 49ers together. And I was like, really? They're being held together when they just got trucked? I mean, okay, I guess. I there's not too much for me to say about this lone wolf. I'm gonna pick the Rams. I'm picking the Rams in a clear-cut victory. I think San Francisco has too many problems with injuries right now, and the Rams are playing really good football. They're
Right.
they're like the Panthers. We thought they were going to be horrible, but give McVay credit. He has this team in a position to basically put the defending NFC conference champions on the brink.
Right.
And I think they're going to do it. And I don't even know if it's going to be that close. I think it's going to be a 10-plus point victory for the Rams.
Yeah. A couple things I'll say. Rams, defensively, they're playing a lot better than they did last year. Aaron Donald looks like a monstrosity again, which isn't really a surprise. The surprise to me is that Jared Goff is playing much better offensively. Last year, he just did not look like he really was worth that number one pick. I mean, he didn't look like he was the guy that he was supposed to be. This year, he's playing a lot better, a lot more efficient football. And they don't really have a lot of running back options. They had an injury to their running back, and then they had to have another person step in. So I think Cam Akers, who they drafted, I think he was injured, and they've kind of rotated through some guys. Offensively is where the surprise is to me for the Rams. They've been playing a lot better offensively, which, McVay, we know he's a great offensive mind and good coach, but I'm just surprised that they were able to put it together the way they have this year. And the 49ers are, yes, I totally agree. They're on the brink. They will lose this game to the Rams, and they will not make the playoffs. I'll
Well,
say it right now. They are
coming
not going to
out
make the
and just
playoffs.
and just put it out there that the Rams or the 49ers are
49ers.
not going to make it back to the playoffs after being in the Super Bowl last year.
I'm just
All
throwing
right,
it out right now.
everybody, I'm getting close to making that call. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not quite there,
Just
but
boldly throwing it out there on the
whoa,
gauntlet
whoa,
of week 6.
no, and boom. Sorry, 49ers, you're done.
You're done. Well, and look, the biggest reason why I want to say that right now is quarterback issue, quarterback controversy, however you want to look at it. Jimmy G goes out, and then you said, and we talked about this, coach. He said after the game, it was because he wasn't feeling well or he wasn't feeling good or he might have been injured or something like that. Which, again, then if that were the case, then why did you play him if you thought he was injured in the first place? So it begs the question, was it that or is it performance that puts you on the sideline? And if that's the case, the 49ers are in trouble if they're having a quarterback controversy or
Right.
quarterback issue.
Well, and the thing is, if they're having a quarterback controversy, they're in trouble because they don't have another quarterback.
Right.
I'll just say it. After Garoppolo, they don't have another quarterback.
Right.
They don't. And if people say they do, who?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So question their sanity a little bit on that.
But
Yeah.
please tell me because um, I don't see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I really think, again, I think it was just one of those years last year for the 49ers that their defense played out of their mind. Their offensive line just blew holes open for the running game right and left. Garoppolo didn't have to do much, and they rode to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them a really good team. I think just everything fell into place, kind of like it did the last time they had a run to the Super Bowl.
Right. And,
The
and
last,
and so now they're having a down year, and I could see them bouncing back next year, kind of like the Rams have done. It's almost kind of it has the same feel in a way, except the Rams kind of got rid of some of their players, and that just kind of turned a little differently based on contracts and things that we talked about before. But this year they've been plagued by a lot of injuries, and it doesn't take much. That's why I'm willing to say that right now. It doesn't take much. You lose games like that, and you're in that division with Seattle and Los Angeles ahead of you, and then the Cardinals also. Um, you know, it's just not going to be possible for you to get out of that division. Um, and so that's why they're done.
all right.
So
So the last game before we talk about the Packers, Arizona at Dallas. Um, Intriguing game because now you have a Dallas team that has ton of defensive issues. You have an embattled defensive coordinator who, to be honest, I think Mike Nolan's a good defensive coordinator. You look at that Dallas defensive roster, and it's not impressive. You spent all your money on offensive guys. What do you expect when you're taking the discount bin for defensive players? It's like you went to I don't know.
dollar store. No,
You
just
you
that's
went you
horrible.
went
But
to
yeah,
Home Depot for your offense, and you went to Ace Hardware for your defense. It just yeah, they went to the Dollar Tree
right.
for their defensive players and took whatever they could get. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a break here because I don't think it's a great defensive roster to begin with.
Yeah.
You lose Dak Prescott. Hopefully Wish him a speedy recovery.
Right.
This could be that could have been the last game that people see Dak Prescott play as a Dallas Cowboy, by the way.
Right. They didn't solve his contract
They
issues.
did not solve his contract issue. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, and now he is going to come ask for a big time contract, and they have to go off of what they saw and what they project that he can do, not what he actually did because of the injury. So puts Dallas in a very difficult situation.
Right.
They do have Andy Dalton, who is a solid quarterback. He was good in Cincinnati, not great. You're playing an Arizona team that is good, not great. But this is a tough one.
It is, yeah.
But I'm going on a limb. I'm going to take Arizona beating Dallas at home. I think Hopkins and Murray are just going to have a field day. That Dallas defense is just so porous. They just don't have a secondary that can hold up to any NFL offense at this point, and they've proven it week after week. So I'm taking Arizona in a close game. Wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way, but because we make predictions, I'm taking Arizona.
Yeah. And we have to choose, So Dallas's offense is going to take a step back. Yes, I realize they have some offensive talent, no question about that. But Andy Dalton is not Dak Prescott. Andy Dalton is good, but he is not great. And I think Dak Prescott has the ability to be, a top 5 guy. Andy Dalton is not that guy, and he never was during his career. He just hasn't been. So they're going to take a step back on offense. Well, no matter what their CEO says or any of their front office people say, the defense is not coming around. It is not getting better. It is awful. Absolutely awful. There was an article I was just reading before about an hour or two ago, and there, the CEO's like, "Oh, the defense, it's coming around. It's coming around."
Okay. If
It's
that's
not.
coming around, Lone Wolf, the Packers must have the best defense in NFL history. Then,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
This defense is so bad, it's going to get torn to pieces. I'm intrigued because it's hard to pick this one because I think the Cardinals, they're really not quite there. We thought they started the year pretty hot and they kind of went cold. They're just not quite there, but I think they are going to win in a close one. I do agree with you. The Dallas defense is just that atrocious to where I think Kyler Murray is probably going to run and pass for the same number of touchdowns. He might have 3 of each. I mean, it's just going to be terrible. So it's just going to be one of those high scoring fests, but it'll be a close game. Cardinals win.
all right. And well, let's mention the buys. The Raiders, Saints, Chargers, and Seahawks are on bye this week. So that's why we're not talking about them. The final game we're going to talk about, yeah, of course, are the Green Bay Packers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which, Lone Wolf, this is a game. I'm going to call it a trap game for the Packers.
Yeah.
Um, they've played really well the first 4 weeks, but let's be honest, there was only really one team in there that I was afraid that they were going to lose to, and
Right.
that was the Saints.
Right. Vikings, Lions,
I,
they played
I
pretty
yeah,
steady and
I felt very confident they would win those games.
right.
Buccaneers coming off of a bad loss. And Brady usually doesn't have 2 bad games in a row, but he is getting old. I mean, he's as old as we are,
Right. Exactly.
and I forget things sometimes.
I don't believe that.
Um, you know, I these are the tough ones because we know that the Packers aren't going undefeated.
Right.
It's just when are they gonna get a
When are
loss?
they dropping their game? Yeah.
Um, it's on the road, but they've also had a week to get healthy, figure some stuff out after losing Kirksley and a couple other guys. I'm gonna go with Green Bay in a close one. Um, Probably the closest game they've had to this year. I know the Saints score was close, but the game really wasn't as close as the score shows. I think this is gonna be a close game, like 31-27, something like that. It's gonna come down to whoever I think has the ball last. Um, and I think Rodgers is just playing at a totally different level than Brady. I don't think Gronkowski is helping that offense out at all.
Right.
So I'm going to go Green Bay in a close one at Tampa Bay, and it puts Tampa Bay in a situation where they are kind of in trouble then, because I believe that would put them down to
I think it's 3-3.
3-3.
Yeah.
And a 500 record in the NFC is not going to get you into the playoffs.
Right. But they'll still be in the thick of the division, if that were the case. So
Right.
it's not terrible, but yeah. Um, I would say, it is a trap game. You're right, and the Packers are not going to go 16-0. We know that they're going to do well, and they're gonna play a lot of teams that they're probably going to have. They're going to win a lot of these games. They're playing a lot. The schedule they're looking at right now hasn't really turned out to be as tough of a schedule based on how teams are playing so far this year. I look at it and it could go either way. I agree. This is a tough game. The Buccaneers are well coached. Tom Brady's still Tom Brady. Yes, but he's maybe lost a little bit from the luster of the Tom Brady that he used to be. But he's still a very efficient and good quarterback. The difference I think that I see is defensively, Tampa needs to get a push against Aaron Rodgers, which teams haven't been able to do so far. Haven't been hitting and sacking him a whole lot. A testament to the offensive line, but with Vita V out up front, it makes a huge difference for the Buccaneers in getting pressure. You have to stop the run, and you have to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers. And I think it's going to be more difficult for them to do that in this game. So I think the Packers will go in. They're not taking this team lightly, coming off this bye that they had, and they will win in a close one as well. I agree with you. It's going to be a hard-fought game, but I think the Packers will prevail.
All right. So there you have it, everybody. There, that is our Week 6 preview of the NFL. And of course, the last thing, Lone Wolf, we talk. It's been kind of we had our top 5 before the season started, and we'll get back to that once the season's done. But it's been kind of our weekly tradition to talk about the hot seat for coaches here, and we kind of mentioned it at the beginning, but we didn't really go in depth. We talked about obviously Quinn, who got fired, and then of course Adam Gasse. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Guys, I mean, they are minus 86 in point differential.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment.
The next closest, Lone Wolf, I mean, you got a team at 53, but I mean, that's not even that bad.
Let's just not even call him we're just gonna call him Rich Kotite 2.0. That's what we're gonna call him. I just I mean, really, I think from now on, I'm just going to say Kotite 2.0.
Oh, I think the Jets would rather have Rich Kotite right now, Lone Wolf.
I think you're right. I think you're right because he
Okay.
wouldn't just cut a guy. So
So going through it, besides
yeah,
Adam, of course, Adam Gasse in the AFC East, all those coaches are on solid ground.
yeah,
You have the Bills at 4-1, the Patriots 2-2. Bill Belichick's gonna be there as long as he wants because of what he's done.
yeah, hands
Um,
down, yeah.
you have
He could go
Florida,
0-16 next year, and they wouldn't get rid of him.
right?
So yeah,
You have the Dolphins at 2-3, probably 3-3 after this week because you're playing the Jets. So those coaches are safe.
right.
You have the AFC North. Again, I think all those coaches are fairly safe. Obviously Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, those coaches are not on the hot seat at all.
No, no,
Zach Taylor, though, in Cincinnati, even though it's only his second year, if things would get way out of hand here,
yeah,
he could be in a little bit of trouble. I don't think he will get fired, but I'm talking about if it gets like New York Jets bad,
right,
Cincinnati will pull a trigger and fire him. But they're only negative 24 in point differential,
right,
which means they've been in almost every game. And they've won a game and tied a game.
right,
So
right. I
yeah,
don't
not,
see it. Yeah,
not saying that they're gonna make a run or anything, but they're not as bad as it seems there. AFC South, Titans safe, Colts safe, Houston Texans already gone. Cronell finished the year out. He will not be the head coach there next year. I
no, he
mean,
won't be.
he's 73 years old. Um, they'll find somebody. I think, to be honest, they're gonna um, try to find. They're probably gonna go a young guy route, kind of
Right.
like LaFleur, to try to revitalize that offense that
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien totally dismantled with trading Hopkins. Um, on the hot seat, though, you got the Marone in Jacksonville. I think
Sure.
that thing is burning his rear end right now. I don't see him surviving the season in Jacksonville. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it kind of depends on how it goes for the course of the year as to whether he gets fired in the middle of the season or if he gets fired at the end of the season. But either way, he's not going to be their head coach next year, um, hands down. But he is definitely on the hot seat. So I mean, if they start dropping, 3, 4 games in a row here, it's very possible that Jacksonville pulls the trigger on him and he's out the door.
Well, they've already lost 4 in a row after
I'm just
winning.
saying if they lose 3 or 4 more,
Well, okay.
you'll look at it and say, okay, maybe it's time we just do it, instead of waiting till the end of the year. So
All right, moving to the AFC West, you have the Chiefs, no Raiders, no Broncos, no Fangio's only in his second season.
right,
And we talked about the Chargers a little bit. I think that seat's warm. I don't
yeah,
think it's hot. If things would get really out of hand, I could see ownership making a change. But they're only minus 15 in point differential, so they've been in almost every game they've played.
yeah. And Anthony Lynn, I mean, I like him as a coach. I mean, he seems like he's engaged and the team plays hard, because they're in a lot of close games. Eventually that'll catch up to you. But I think honestly, unless things completely fall apart there, he might even be there next season, like you talked about. Maybe at the end of the year they move on, but it just kind of depends on how the year ends. But I think it's, yeah, like you said, warm. He's not going to be gone mid-season though.
Now, I want to talk about the NFC East last because I have some intriguing scenarios there that I think we could get some
Sure.
conversation on. NFC
Just
North,
wipe out all 4 coaches and start over.
no, not that drastic.
No, I know, I know, I
But
know. Yeah.
NFC North, Packers safe, Bears safe, Detroit Lions, Patricia, that thing's got to be really hot.
Yeah,
I know they won a game, but how
I have
you
no
can,
confidence in him.
I have no confidence in him. So um, I think he'll make the season, but I do not see him being the coach after this season.
Yeah,
Zimmer,
I don't agree. I think Matt Patricia is going to be gone in the middle of the year. I think he's going to continue to bumble his way through, and they're going to lose a bunch of games, and I think he's going to be out. I think ownership didn't pull the trigger at the end of last year. They fired 6 assistants, but if he continues to lose games, which is what's going to happen there, he's going to be
but
out in the middle of the season.
that exact reasoning is why I don't think he'll get fired halfway through the season, is that they didn't pull the trigger in the offseason.
Sure,
I think there's
sure.
something about it that they like in Patricia that they want to see work. But I
Yeah,
think if they go through another full season with him and only win 2 or 3 games, they're
then
gonna
he's out the door. Yeah, yeah.
The Vikings, I think that it is starting to warm up with Zimmer. I mean, you're 1-4, and
Right.
everybody thought that they were had a roster that could contend for the playoffs. And you lose 2, 3 more games, your season's basically done.
Right.
So I think that seat is getting warm for Zimmer in Minnesota.
Yep.
NFC South, Saints no, Buccaneers no, Panthers no, Falcons already fired. So
Right.
there's not much to talk about there. And in the NFC West, I don't think anybody, I don't think anybody's on the hot seat in the NFC West. I
No.
think all those coaches are pretty secure um, in their jobs right now, anyways.
Yep. I agree.
So moving to the NFC East, obviously the New York Giants is not going to be hot. You have a
No.
first
First
year,
year. Yep.
you have a first year head coach. I mean, they could, but then you start putting them in the Cleveland Brown category, and I don't think New York wants to get into that.
And I don't think they've ever really been that kind of franchise. They don't pull the plug that quickly on their coaches.
Washington, no, it's Rivera's first year. Here's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, absolutely. Doug Peterson is on the hot seat here.
Yes.
If he does not get into the playoffs this year, you could see them making a change. Um,
Yeah.
I yes, 2 years ago you won the Super Bowl. They've already forgotten that. It's been like 100 years for them since they've won the Super Bowl. So, if Peterson is kind of relying on that fact that he brought a Super Bowl championship to Philadelphia, they've forgotten about that already. That's the mindset of Philadelphia sports
It's
fans.
an unforgiving place.
Right.
It's very
So
unforgiving.
if he does not get this thing turned around, I would not be surprised if he was let go at the end of the year. Um, Dallas Cowboys. I would not put it past Jerry Jones to fire Mike McCarthy at the end of the season if they do not make the postseason. Um, so yeah, I just got a message from Lone Wolf. We lost on Lone Wolf, but I'll finish my thought here before I end the season or end this end the episode. I would not be shocked if the Dallas Cowboys made a change if Mike McCarthy does not get them into the postseason. I think Jerry Jones is losing patience with his franchise, and um, would not be shocked at all um, for him to do that. Lone Wolf, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. I don't know
All
what
right.
happened. It just cut out on me all of a sudden.
So, I was telling everybody the last thing was I would not be surprised if Jerry Jones would move on from Mike McCarthy after one season if he fails to make the playoffs.
Ooh, that's intriguing, definitely. I'll say this about Peterson. I think I agree with you that he's definitely on the hot seat. It's yeah, you're 2 years removed from the Super Bowl victory. You got to win, and that's the bottom line. And if they don't right the ship there, then he's in trouble. The nice thing is you can right the ship in the NFC East and
Right.
still be,
Right.
winning the division. I don't know, Mike McCarthy. After 1 year, you really think that Jerry Jones would pull the trigger that quickly on Mike McCarthy if he doesn't figure it out just in this 1 year?
I it the and the what I told the audience is this is that
Yeah,
I think Jerry Jones is getting super frustrated with not winning
yeah,
and getting frustrated with his entire franchise. So if they don't make the postseason, I think he just flips out. To be honest, I think he has a mental breakdown and just goes haywire and gets rid of McCarthy and basically cleans house.
yeah.
I just the stuff I keep reading that's coming out of Dallas, it would not shock me. Would he? Probably not. But would it shock me? Absolutely not at all.
Okay.
I think he's getting to his breaking point with not being able to win.
Yeah.
And if he would listen to our show and listen to what I've said, get your butt out of the way and let the football people do their job, and you'll
Right.
start
Right.
winning.
Right. Exactly.
It's that
Yeah.
simple, Jerry. Stop.
That's the bottom line. It really is. And so many people do say that, and he doesn't listen, and he won't. But it is the problem. I think it's less likely that that's going to happen. I would be a little bit surprised if it happened, but I'm not discounting it either. He could do that. He is very fed up with the way things have gone because let's face it, I mean, I'm not a particular fan of the Cowboys, but they have had a lot of talent on those rosters. They have
Hmm.
had good teams and they've squandered their chances with those teams quite a few times in the last 5-10 years. It's not for lack of talent. So I don't think people. And that's not the case. So Jerry Jones just has the wrong coach in place, or he can't keep his nose out of making football decisions, and that the end result is you have a team that underperforms.
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's why it would not shock me. Um,
it's a bold.
yeah.
That's a bold prediction. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
So there is our coaching hot seat for the week. And like I said, it's kind of been a staple since the season started, week one on who we thought, and it'll continue to update as we go through the season. Um, and who knows? Maybe the NFL has just gotten to the point where the teams are saying, we're not waiting to the end of the season. We're getting rid of the guy now and making
Mm,
changes now and just suffering through the rest of the season and seeing what we have as a roster,
yeah.
which would be a very different approach than traditionally than what we've seen.
Yeah.
Normally NFL teams are like, no, let's just get through the season with this in place, and then we'll move on afterwards. They're kind of taking the NBA and Major League Baseball approach, where if you're struggling and you're going to move on, get rid of the guy so he can't do any more damage.
Oh, right. Yep.
You know,
Move on, get somebody is the interim, and then yeah, you
right,
plan
and,
for next year. Yeah.
and that traditionally is what the NBA and the Major League Baseball do. So, seeing it twice already this season is kind of interesting because you usually don't see it in the NFL.
Right. I think honestly, I think you're going to see it again. You're going to see maybe one, probably. at least one for sure, if not two teams do it in the middle of the year. I really
If
do think
we
that they
don't
have
see a guaranteed another one, I may lose it
that.
because
Yeah,
that
I agree
guy,
with you 100%. Yeah, I mean, there's one that should be, and we've talked about that ad nauseum.
I'm
So
just gonna
yeah,
say it.
right.
Adam Gaze should not have a job right now.
And the funny thing is, for anybody listening to the show now or like later in the recording, they're going to be like, "My God, these guys just keep going on and on." I mean, it's partly because we just can't believe that he's still employed. And I
Right,
don't know. I mean, anybody that's out there listening is probably like, "Okay, well, we got the point," but it just it just boggles the mind. It boggles the
right.
mind. Yeah.
Because anybody listening, if you were that bad at your job, would you still be employed?
Right.
No.
No, you wouldn't be.
I mean, we're not the only ones saying this.
No, no.
You have commentators from ESPN, Mike Greenberg, who is a
Yeah.
huge Jets fan, is saying the guy should be gone. There are
Yeah.
people all around the country saying, why is he still there?
Yeah. I
Forget the
mean,
Jets.
Damien Woody, we talked about his rant about New
Yeah,
York. He has
but
had more than one rant about this case, So I mean, and I think people trust his opinion when it comes to football. So yeah, it's not just us. I mean, we're just echoing some of those sentiments, but we've been saying this for a long time. I mean, I said this at the end of last year too. So
right.
yeah,
It
yeah.
it's just it is amazing. But hey, that he's got dirt on somebody.
Right? That's what it is. He's blackmailing
He's
somebody.
got dirt on somebody. That's my conclusion here. He's got dirt on somebody.
That's awesome.
Uh, that's got to be what it is because it's not because he's a good football coach.
Yep, there you go.
So,
that's
um,
that's great.
all right, Lowell. Anything else that we did not cover that you want to talk about here before we wrap it up for the night, Lowell?
No, I'm good. I think we're good for tonight.
All right. Thank you, everybody that stopped in and listened for a bit. Thank you if you listened to this recorded. If you'd like to be part of the show, drop us a line, and we'll try to coordinate a time for you to come on. We are hoping to get back to our traditional Thursdays here because most of our audience does tune in on Thursdays.
Right.
It's been our best audience night since we started this. So, next Thursday we should be back, pre wrapping up week 6, sorry, and
Yep.
previewing week 7 of the NFL. And who knows, maybe we'll finally have the coaching fire that we've been waiting and anticipating for.
Well, and we've got a game on that Thursday, assuming everything goes, as it should, and things don't change based on the COVID. Giants Eagles, which
Right.
normally you'd say, well, maybe not, but in this case, it's a
It's an
division
NFC
shaping
East
game.
game. It's an NFC
Yeah.
East game. All those games are actually crucial, even though they might
Right.
be snooters. So, um, thank you everybody for listening. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Good night.